Once, I had a friend named Teddy who worked in advertising. He was from Greece. Teddy told me the most important idea in advertising is new. It creates an itch. You simply put your product in there as sort of a calamine lotion. But Teddy also talked about a deeper bond with the product. Nostalgia. It's delicate, but potent. Teddy told me that in Greek, nostalgia literally means the pain from an old wound. It's a twinge in your heart, far more powerful than memory alone. Some products aren't designed to bathe you in calamine lotion, to tell you everything's going to be okay. No, they have a greater goal. Some products are designed to take you to a place where you ache to go again. A simpler, happier time. Some products are carousels. They go backwards and forwards at the same time, creating new memories while simultaneously taking us to places we've already been to. That's what the reintroduced Fatebringer is. It's a time machine. It goes backwards and forwards simultaneously, showing us the new reality we live in, whilst taking us to a place we know we loved. But memory can be an unreliable narrator. And it pains me to say this, but the Fatebringer is not the default pick anymore. Times have changed. Convoluted and poetic references to turn you into a madman aside, I meant what I said. I'm going to show you why, but let's get to the nitty-gritty first. Fatebringer is a kinetic 140 RPM hand cannon. It does 70 to the head, 47 to the body, and kills in 0.87 seconds, requiring 3 crits to make the kill, or 2 crits in one body with damage perks like Kill Clip. The Fatebringer can be obtained from the Vault of Glass, initially as a random drop from the Templar boss encounter or from the Gatekeeper encounter before Atheon. After that, you can farm for spoils in the raid and acquire multiple rolls of the weapon at the end chest. The Fatebringer has a very competitive set of base statistics: 51 range, 61 stability, 60 handling, 51 reload speed, and 84 aim assist, with the standard 14 zoom that we've come to know and love from this archetype of weapons. This is substantially better than its direct in-slot competitor, Dire Promise, which does admittedly have a slight edge when it comes to handling, reload speed, and aim assistance, but falls way down in the areas that really matter, with range being 6 down and stability being 11 down from the Fatebringer. Behaviorally, the Fatebringer rolls with 98 recoil direction, and that's enough to notice that it pulls to the right. The amount of recoil is very manageable and controllable, but depending on who you are as a player, this particular kick will either not bother you at all, or it will be a deal breaker, as it can sometimes cover the health bar of the opponent when firing. Personally, this doesn't bother me, but in high-stress crucible environments where even the smallest strafe movements are the decider between life and death, this can be extremely annoying to deal with. For reference, Dire Promise rolls with 84 recoil direction, which still tends a little right, but it's nowhere near as pronounced as Fatebringer. Despite the recoil, which can be corrected through a few different barrels like Extended Barrel, Chambered Compensator, and Arrowhead Break, there's plenty to love about how the Fatebringer feels. The legendary cadence and synergy between pulling the trigger, hearing the gunshot, and seeing an enemy explode into a fiery afterthought has been preserved to great effect in Destiny 2. The gun looks, feels, and sounds fantastic. And like I mentioned in the Grid Skipper review, that alone is worth it to use this weapon. Not everything has to be a meta contender, it just has to speak to you and agree with you. The good news is that no matter what role you get, you can expect it to iterate on the already very nice feeling base experience. Whether these alterations are enough to push it into meta contention is another story altogether. I was fortunate to test this weapon with a few different roles that gave me some very different thoughts about the perks available on this weapon. During a recent stream over at Twitch, I set out to test 3 unique roles in Control. This is what I found. My first good role was Hammerforge Rifling, Tactical Mag, Explosive Payload, and Kill Clip, and I found that this weapon was very solid for 6v6 game modes. This role didn't solve the recoil issue, but it certainly made it feel consistent across all the ranges that I was using the weapon at. Kill Clip was a nice to have rather than a game changer, and it certainly aided in cleaning up folks at extended ranges, whilst giving the confidence to challenge everything and everyone that I came across. Role number 2 was Small Bore, Accurized Rounds, Tunnel Vision, and Eye of the Storm. Despite the higher stability, range, and handling of this role over the other one, I struggled to get this one to work well. I had 7 higher range than my explosive payload roll for a total of 67, but the range fall-off was much more noticeable on this roll. Tunnel vision was a pleasantly crisp experience, and Eye of the Storm felt a little wasted on me as I was still struggling to come to terms with the recoil pattern of this weapon, let alone get involved in sweaty duels that would have made use of that perk. Roll number 3 was my highest range roll by far, and there was a real consistency in the experience too. Hammerforged rifling, accurized rounds, osmosis, opening shot. And even though osmosis is a dead perk in PvP, I kept this roll around just to test how higher range felt with opening shot, and I was not disappointed. With 69 range, nice. And opening shot, I felt I was able to compete in territories that felt exclusively within the domain of Ace of Spades, but only for the first shot. The second shot always felt less sticky and less reliable. The higher base range wasn't enough to offset the fall-off, and as a result, I always felt like I was being blue-balled by my own weapon. Amazing foreplay with the first shot, but none of the follow-through. And honestly, it's very weird to me that 3 unique rolls translated to 3 very unique experiences in the Crucible. On one hand, none of them were actually that bad, or demanded that I changed my playstyle too much, but on the other, none of them really excelled or surprised me in a way that made me want to use the gun more and more. Explosive payload and kill clip was the best roll by far, but it came at a cost of weapon feel and a spudginess that I just couldn't come to terms with. For my spoil hunting, I'll be chasing a maximum range explosive payload roll so I can ensure consistency in the ranges that matter. My ideal roll for PvP would be extended barrel, which straightens out the recoil direction to 100, accurized rounds, explosive payload, and opening shot with the range masterwork. According to d2gunsmith.com, this roll has a theoretical range of 32.3 meters before fall-off, no doubt extended by opening shot and explosive payload's range immune damage. The main contenders in column 3 would be Killing Wind, Thresh, and maybe Tunnel Vision, but explosive payload gives the gun an unmistakable consistency when dueling and serves to throw others off their game. Column 4 was a tough pick between opening shot and Firefly, as Firefly also gives plus 45 to your reload on a kill, plus it's just a fun perk. But opening shot is ultimately more useful, and if it's between a guaranteed first shot or splash damage, well, the choice is easy. In terms of the meta, the Fatebringer is in a bit of a no man's land when it comes to hand cannons. Fatebringer is streets ahead of its main rival, the Dire Promise. The higher base range and stability alone make it a superior pick. But the main question I find myself asking is, why would I run a legendary, kinetic, 140 RPM hand cannon? Palindrome I can understand, as there's some S tier options in Chaperone and Bastion to pair it with, plus it's a stat monster with rangefinder. But why a kinetic? There are 2 main meta setups for a Fatebringer: hand cannon and a sniper, or hand cannon and a shotgun. For meta discussions, not running a one-hit kill option is generally a bad idea, and you want said one-hit kill option to cover a range that your hand cannon doesn't, so you have a wide variety of engagement coverage. So, we can use any shotgun in the game, or any sniper in the game with our Fatebringer. But the question we should be asking ourselves critically is why we are limiting ourselves to a legendary option for our kinetic slot. Is there a particular exotic weapon that we ought to be pairing with the Fatebringer in the energy slot or the heavy slot? And would this exotic be of more use to us than Ace of Spades, Hawkmoon, or even Thorn? This is the central question that is answered differently by different people. My good friend and Encore teammate Glow suggested in his video that this would be his hand cannon of choice to pair with his duality, citing that he had been looking to put down his 8,000 kill True Prophecy. He's got a very positive outlook on the weapon, and I highly suggest checking out his video. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below the like button. But duality mains aside, we have Borealis, Cloudstrike, Le Monarch, Fighting Lion, Lord of Wolves, and maybe Jotun to take up that exotic energy slot. On the heavy side, we have Truth, Colony, Black Talon, and Wardcliff Coil as our meta picks. So if you main any of those, the Fatebringer becomes something you can seriously consider. But then comes the double whammy. If it's a legendary kinetic hand cannon you're after, why Fatebringer over a True Prophecy, Crimmel's Dagger, or even a Steady Hand? You see where I'm getting at with this? Fatebringer isn't a bad weapon for the reasons we talked about in the previous section. It's just that when you're selecting a loadout to win matches or to top the leaderboard, it's not the first option you'd go for in this meta. Hell, it's not even the second, third, or even fourth option. 120s have all but made 140s obsolete with their damage profile and safety from range. Running any 140 is a conscious decision to break from the meta, and if you're going to main a kinetic 140, it better have an edge to add to your gameplay, like the exotic trio we mentioned earlier. And as a 140 itself, well, I think the palindrome is just a better option personally. Fatebringer is stickier with greater aim assist, but a rangefinder palindrome covers more ground against more kinds of opponents. And that's why in this current sandbox, Fatebringer doesn't really have a solid place amongst the top rung of weapons. Even with the stasis nerfs, I don't expect things to change until such time 120s receive a sharper range nerf or an actual damage profile change. And thus, we come to an inconvenient conclusion, and a final question to ask ourselves. Is the Fatebringer worth grinding for in PvP? From a statistical standpoint, yes, it's the best legendary kinetic 140 by some margin. From a meta standpoint, no. It shares a slot with 3 very good 120s and 3 even better exotic 140s. From a mechanical or even experiential standpoint, if you do not go for this weapon, even for PvE, you are doing yourself a disservice and are missing out on one of the best feeling hand cannons in the game. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I am not going to avoid recommending a weapon simply because it's not the best. That's not how loot works in this game for the experiences it provides, especially on the PvP side of things. PvP isn't meant to be taken seriously in its current state, and should therefore be approached with the view of having fun first and foremost. By the same logic, if a weapon performs well enough and is fun to use, it should be chased and it should be worth grinding for. And with Fatebringer, it strikes the right notes for me, mechanically and otherwise. It's not going to be something I put multiple thousands of kills on, but some form of it will be in my inventory for when I just want to shake things up a bit. I'll always recommend Fatebringer because to me, it's my carousel, my time machine. When I was younger and more naive, when I was unsure of myself and who I wanted to be, when Destiny was the escape from it all and the calm in the storm, a calm I badly needed to ride my own ship and take stock of my life. Destiny 1 forever holds a special place in my heart, and when I use Fatebringer, it feels like I've reconnected with an old flame. It's one of my favorite weapons of all time. But I know what it is now. I know its flaws, and I can see it clearly for what it is, but I still love it all the same. I give the Fatebringer 7.5 Jaffa Cakes out of 10. Fatebringer is just a decent hand cannon. It's not a meta contender, but it is a very, very fun gun to use, and I am so happy it's come back. I can't wait to hunt for the time lost version when it comes out, but until then, I'll be spending some quality time with an old friend. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this review was informative and entertaining in equal measure. This was a hard script to write because it wasn't easy to call it one way or the other. As ever, leave a comment below with your thoughts on Fatebringer and whatever gun you think I should cover next. My name is Xander Nomad, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.